Friedrich Nietzsche was perhaps the most prolific philosopher of the 19th century. In his philosophy, he sought to elevate that which makes man most healthy and spiritually alive. And one of my favorite quotes from him goes, "For believe me, the secret for harvesting from existence the greatest fruitfulness and the greatest enjoyment is to live dangerously. Build your cities on the slopes of Vesuvius." Why would we want to do such a thing? To willingly subject ourselves to the potential for danger and loss and hardship. Let's just play it safe, right? Well, here's the thing, my friends, is you are going to die. Everyone you love is going to die, but most people never live. Oof. I don't mean to be so morbid, but it's true. A lot of us choose to live safely rather than beautifully, rather than heroically. I once wrote in this book, yes, I'm going to quote myself here, "Man is a shooting star, burning across the sky, dazzling the earth and heavens in his short time alive. He should live his life as such." I remember receiving that line on a plane flight, and it changed my life forever. My friends, beautiful opportunities, beautiful girls, and glorious challenges pass us by every day. But we just keep our heads down and stay in our stagnant realities. Why? The sad reality, my friends, is that we are so good at lying to ourselves, at rationalizing all the ways we stay safe, and as a result, we live timidly. We fail to take the leaps of faith and courage that make life explode with new power and love and change. And fuck it, my friends, I'm not here to go to my grave with my potential and destiny unrealized, and I don't think you want that either. Inside of all of us, there is this mortal nature that is scared of loss, that is scared of change. But deeper down, there is the heroic spirit that wants to affirm life, to live dangerously, and most of all, live beautifully. In this video, I'm here to talk about Nietzsche's idea of living dangerously, why we should live dangerously philosophically and personally, and most of all, seek to make our lives into a piece of living art. Welcome back to Wisdom Warriors. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Let's dive into it. What did the ancient Greek want out of life? What has inspired spirited men across the ages? Is it the pursuit of love, family, power, or legacy? Perhaps. But Nietzsche would argue that most of these men sought one thing above all, and that is to turn their lives into a piece of living art, to live beautifully. And this heroic mindset is the antithesis to much of the ugliness and weakness that we find in ourselves and we find in the world. Friedrich Nietzsche proposed there's two different types of humans. There are life deniers that seek comfort, that seek pleasure, and seek to avoid pain. And then there's life affirmers who affirm the wild, mysterious, and dangerous nature of life, and they seek to thrive through adversity. How is it that we can become life affirmers and give the heroic yes to life, even to suffering, to challenges, to adversity, and not live, enslaved to our base nature, but to our higher spirit? Well, first, you must choose to live for something that is greater than the pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of pain. Perhaps you should live for beauty. To quote Nietzsche again, "One must give value to their existence by behaving as if one's very existence were a work of art." Thus spoke Zarathustra. In living life as a work of art, all of a sudden dangers, hardships, and losses take on a new color. They become meaningful rather than miserable, because you can see them and experience them as part of a larger story. And what do you want your saga to be? This insight has given me the courage to make most of the hardest decisions and endure the hardest trials in my life. For instance, dropping out of an Ivy League school and all the consequences that came with that, starting a YouTube channel and putting myself out there online, leaving the love of my life and enduring the heartbreak that came with it, leaving behind every addiction that's ever ruled me, facing the resistance to writing a book day in and day out. These things were ridiculously hard, every single one of them. And I know you have hard moments in your life too. And the guiding light that has often struck me like lightning is, what do I want my greater story to be? Am I going to stay safe or take the dangerous, courageous, and beautiful path when it's presented? I remember driving to Sedona with tears in my eyes, leaving behind everything I had built and everything I knew. And it's almost like God spoke in a moment. And God said to me that the promised land only awaits men of courage. It is only through courage that we can liberate ourselves from lower identities and become who we truly are. In Bronze Age mindset, the author Bap provides some intriguing, if not radical, ideas on beauty and living the beautiful life. He equates beauty, like Nietzsche, with that which is healthy and vital, and he uses beauty as a touchstone per se to recognize what is natural and good versus what is unhealthy and decadent. And this idea rings true for me because we can apply it in our own lives. What would the most beautiful and heroic life look like for you? Right? I'm not saying to abandon your family, and become an egomaniac trying to be Achilles from the Iliad. But I am asking the question of what is weak and ugly in your life? What needs to be purged with fire so that you can live into your most beautiful version? If that is your touchstone for how to live the good life, other things will fall into place. As Nietzsche said, you must be ready to burn yourself in your own flame. How could you rise anew if you have not first become ashes? Living dangerously is the best way to cut through your own bullshit and your own lies. You gotta understand is humans are so good at lying to themselves, at rationalizing their weak existence. Something like fear and resistance rule us from the shadows of our subconscious minds our whole lives, and most people never even realize it. For instance, people say, oh, I'm miserable because of this thing or those people. And it's like, no, you just said no to your calling, to your dreams for the past 5 years of your life. And you fill your life with trivial bullshit and distractions and toxic relationships because you are avoiding your path. And other people are lonely and kicking the can down the road and thinking about all these existential thoughts because they just consistently fail to approach the cute girl that they keep seeing in class. It's like, man, we are so good at letting weakness rule our lives. And this is why Nietzsche encouraged everyone to become a down goer, to live dangerously. You see, down goers, when they approach a fear, a resistance, this dangerous path, they man up, they find the courage in their gut, and they say yes to life. They say yes to down going. Instead of always trying to make their life better and more perfect and to be happier, they're like, I'm okay with being miserable. I'm okay with the dangerous, risky business of living. And I'm not going to try to make it so safe and perfect. I'm going to get wild with it. And only through getting wild with it can we actually become free. And this is why danger is so important, is because it reveals what is true. It reveals who you are beneath the restrictions, the limitations, the rationalizations, and all the ways we lie to ourselves. It brings forth the essence. So how does one live dangerously? Should we all go out to the great wide north and go wrestle grizzly bears? Well, you might be a short-lived legend, but nonetheless, that is reckless, not courageous. Kind of like abandoning your family or abandoning that which you value most. That is not a sign of living dangerously, but actually a hidden form of life denial. Living dangerously means two things to Nietzsche and to me. And the first one is the personal courage to overcome all impediments, all resistances, fears, and limitations to becoming who you are. The second way to live dangerously is to courageously question your beliefs, your convictions, to question the sacred cows and become Nietzsche's free spirit or become a philosopher. And often, philosophers must be criminal in their thinking. So we're going to break down these two approaches to living dangerously in a very grounded way. Let's dive into it. So here are 4 questions to help all of you get clear on how to live dangerously, not recklessly, but courageously. Number 1, if you knew everything would be totally all right and there was no fear, what would you do? Number 2, what is a dream that you have seen many times on the horizon, but have yet to act on? What is a hardship or a challenge that you have consistently backed down from? Third question. If your dad, your friends, and your family no longer existed, who would you want to become? If there were zero social consequences, what would you share? Who would you be? And the fourth question, what makes your heart beat faster? On a daily basis, what inspires excitement and trepidation inside of you? These 4 questions I've discovered are keys for identifying the dangerous and beautiful path. Now, I try to apply these as often as possible, even if it's just to get a little wild in small ways. For instance, yesterday, I went to the coffee shop, and on my way there, I said hi to every beautiful girl I saw. Terrifying, cringy, but I'm gonna die, and no one's gonna remember any of this. Why do I still have that fear? Another way I live dangerously is I share myself on the internet to all who watch. This is terrifying for me. So much of this video is coming straight out of the courage chapter in my book, and at the end of that chapter, I share this really hilarious, cringy story about learning to dance. I mean, I was so scared of dancing for so many years, even like raising my hands above my head and what other people were gonna think. So I started going to this thing called ecstatic dance, and I would go every week, and eventually I learned to dance freely, and I gained this great asset and skill and joy to be free in my body. And then one day, I guess you're going to have to hear the sexy car wash story in the book. Okay, let's just say the prospect of living dangerously is exhilarating, and it's a great guide to remembering what is the beautiful and strong path. If you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling stagnant, which most people are, I encourage you to tune in to that feeling of where is the beautiful and dangerous path, because this is going to lead to freedom, and this is what's going to lead to who you are. There's this cliche of, oh, just be yourself. I think 99.9% of people will never be able to be themselves because they don't live dangerously enough. The self, to me, is a superior essence, and it barely shines through all of our ego because our ego has so many resistances, so many fears, and so much conformity that is not in alignment with our soul. And the whole purpose of life, in my eyes, is to bring forth that which is within, is to craft our ego into a perfect vehicle for our substance, for our soul. And to do that, we have to challenge the ego constantly. And that brings us to the final section of this video, and that is philosophical danger. This is honestly closer to the heart of Nietzsche's conception of living dangerously, and that is questioning the prevailing morality of our times and courageously questioning your own convictions and your ideals. There's a reason that philosophers have been killed as heretics since time immemorial. They question the gods, the government structure, and the prevailing morality with ruthlessness. They're unafraid of truly reflecting on questions that are forbidden, or many questions that are taboo. And there are many such taboos and modern morals that are basically arbitrary, such as the value of democracy, the value of diversity, of equality, of rationalism as our chief virtues. In essence, my friends, to be a philosopher, to be Nietzsche's free spirit, means to be a heretic, and that starts at questioning yourself. Nietzsche's ideal man doesn't just question the prevailing morality. That's child's play. He also questions his own ideals and his own assumptions. This is dangerous for the individual because it creates a state of nihilism, which Nietzsche encourages his higher men not to avoid, but to overcome. This is a great downgoing of Nietzsche and Zarathustra, the sense of losing God and finding something new. Now, I have a critique at this at the end, which we'll get into, but let's keep going here. It's important to throw away all programmed conventions, prevailing morality, and even the safety net of God temporarily, so that you can think freely and create your own values. This is dangerous and perilous. To quote Nietzsche, the strength of a person's spirit would be measured by how much truth he could tolerate, or more precisely, to what extent he needs to have it diluted, disguised, sweetened, muted, and falsified. So how does one become philosophically dangerous? Nietzsche gave a model for doing this, and thus spoke Zarathustra on the Three Metamorphoses, from the camel to the lion to the child. I don't have time to get into the entire process in this video, but I'll summarize it as briefly as possible. Essentially, we all start as the camel. The camel stage represents the burdened spirit that takes on heavy loads, embodying the values and expectations imposed by society and traditions. And the camel takes these out into the wilderness, where he must metamorphosize into the lion. And the lion rises up with the mighty no. He becomes a creature of rebellion to the status quo and his own values, and engages in a state of active nihilism. But simply saying no, rebelling against the old models of thinking and being, is not enough to actually create your own system of new values. To become the child, to become the creator, is the real goal of Nietzsche's work. And in Zarathustra's quest, his childlike innocence and will gave birth to this new ideal of the Übermensch. But the Übermensch was kind of an irony because it also represented the abandonment of all ideals while being an ideal itself. And my critique of Nietzsche is that he, in his rebellion against Christianity, against the world of being and the world of Plato, he left behind all perennial or traditional philosophy. And I find this to be an error, because when I look deep enough inside of myself, I find an essence. When I look deep enough into nature and reality, I find a divine substance. And there is this deep sense of connection there with it. For instance, I reject the Übermensch as the ideal for all men. It only embodies the qualities of overcoming. But if your inner nature, if your true self isn't so much like the Übermensch, but more so like a Taoist sage, then becoming that is more of the true path for you. That's just my 2 cents. I could go much deeper here, but let's move on. In conclusion, my friends, I encourage you to live dangerously, to make your life into a piece of living art. And only through this heroic mindset will we have the courage and the willingness to face our downgoings, to face the obstacles and limitations to becoming our most beautiful and badass versions. Thanks for watching Wisdom Warriors. I'm Christian. If you want to talk to me one-on-one and join the new men's group or men's academy, there's a link in the description below for that. I would love to have you as a founding member. If that's not for you, you can click here for another Nietzsche video, which I think you'll like. Have a great day, and don't forget to live dangerously.